Welcome to iTTV for Form 4 Science. The title of this lesson, Cell Division. We're now entering into the third chapter of our Form 4 Science. And what we're going to look at in this chapter is our hereditary. Hereditary is the information that is passed down from one generation to the next generation. Sometimes you might wonder why you look a bit like your father, or why you look a bit like your grandmother, why you and your sister have similar noses, why do you and your brother have similar face cuts. All of these come down from hereditary, or come down into the study of genetics. Cell division. Cell divides into 2 or 4 new cells. Now, this is the key thing that we'll be looking at in this lesson, that a cell is going to divide. So one cell, the original cell, can make either a copy of itself, so one cell becomes 2, or what can happen is one cell can change into 4 new cells, which occurs in the process of making gametes, which we need in sexual reproduction. In the cell is a nucleus, contains chromosomes. So the beginning of our journey into genetics begins inside the nucleus. Inside the nucleus of a human cell are chromosomes. Altogether in our human cell, we have 46 chromosomes, or sometimes we say 23 pairs. Chromosomes look like threads made of DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. So our chromosomes are made from a special type of polymer, which is a very long chain, and we call it DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. All chromosomes are made from DNA across the board, whether you're a plant or an animal. Chromosomes contain genes. Gene, the basic unit of hereditary. Now, on each chromosome, we have sections that are called genes. Each gene controls a particular trait or characteristic about you. If you have brown eyes, that means you had the gene for brown eyes. If you have, like me, a gap between my teeth, that means I had a gene that basically said, you're going to have a gap between your 2 front teeth. If you have an earlobe that is loose or an earlobe that is attached, you had the gene for either the free earlobe or the attached earlobe. Basically, all your characteristics come from the genes that you have inside your body. Mitosis is the process in which a cell separates into 2 identical daughter cells. So now we want to have a look at mitosis. And in mitosis, basically one cell breaks or splits and becomes 2 cells. The 2 cells are exactly identical, like your hands. They basically are exactly identical to each other. Steps in mitosis. The genetic material in the cell nucleus replicates, makes copies. The chromosomes move to the equator and arrange themselves. The sister chromatids are pulled to opposite poles. The cell divides into 2. The key is replicate, equator, pull, and divide. So you need to know the steps in the mitosis process. Very commonly in examinations, they will ask you to arrange a set of diagrams so that you put them in the correct sequence. So remember what we're doing. first we have to make a copy, and then from the copy, what we want to do is send the chromosomes to the equator, then pull them apart, and then make the two new cells. Now let's move up to the board and have a look at this process in a bit more detail. Also at the same time, let's have a look at the nucleus and the key things that we find in the nucleus. So let's begin with the cell nucleus. Now if you take a common animal cell, remember it has no real shape. In here is your nucleus. If we expand the nucleus and make it a bit bigger, what we find is inside the nucleus we have these like thread-like structures. This thread-like structure is your chromosome. Now we take a closer look at the chromosome. So let's just take a bit of this chromosome and expand this. What we get is a helical chain, a double helix of chain. So we get a chain going around like this with a second chain next to it. Like so, and this, which is a double helix shape, this is your DNA. Now, each individual part of the DNA, example, from about here to about here, this will be a gene. Maybe up here, from this part to this part, this will be another gene. So what do we have? A nucleus. In the nucleus we have chromosomes. The chromosomes are in a double helix shape made out of DNA, and individual bits of the DNA represent a gene. Now, when we want to do mitosis, we take this cell and we divide it into two. So this is how mitosis would work. So you've got your cell at the beginning, and inside the nucleus you have your chromosomes. Let's just put two chromosomes inside for simplicity's sake. The first thing that needs to happen is we must replicate. So remember, we have to make two. So step one is we replicate, which means that what I'm going to end up with is one and two, but they're now replicated, which means there's a copy of each one. So I'm going to have a copy here and a copy here like this. Okay? So we've replicated. Now the next thing is we need to go and arrange ourselves at the equator. So step two is arrange at equator. So what happens is the nucleus starts to disappear. So let's just draw the cell back in here. And the two chromosomes come and arrange themselves across the equator here like so. These chromosomes, a pair of them, we call them sister chromatids. So let's pull an arrow out from here. These are called sister chromatids. Now we've arranged at the equator. The next step is to pull them apart. So let's go to the next step, which is pull apart to the poles. So what do we have? I'll draw this cell back in. One gets pulled this way, being pulled to this side, and the other bits get pulled this way. They're pulled by these little pieces, and these little pieces here, let's put a label here, these are called spindle fibers. Spindle fiber. Now, finally, what happens is the cell will divide into two. So let's do the last part here. Cell divides. So the last step, we get one cell over here and one cell over here. This cell will have two chromosomes, and this cell over here will also have two chromosomes. So let's have a look. We started with a cell that had two chromosomes. We finished with two cells, both with two chromosomes each, exactly identical to the original cell. This is the process of mitosis. So we replicate, then we arrange at the equator. The sister chromatids, we pull them apart. They're pulled by spindle fibers, and then finally the cell divides and we get two new cells. So that is mitosis. Function of mitosis: growth, make new cell, repair damaged or dead cell. In unicellular organisms, mitosis is used for asexual reproduction. So the function really of mitosis is growth, repair, or to make new offspring in asexual reproduction, which is mainly for unicellular organisms. So if you are growing, you need to make new cells in your body, and they need to be exactly the same. So we use this process because we get identical cells being produced. There is no variation crossing over. There is only one cell division. In humans, mitosis occurs in somatic cells, normal body cells, hair cell, stomach cell, skin cell, nerve cell, muscle cell. So please understand these characteristics of mitosis. There is no variation whatsoever. There's only one cell division. That means we only divide one time. In humans, it occurs in what we call somatic cells. Our normal body cells are called somatic cells. They have the full 46 chromosomes inside them all the time. So, a quick recap of what we've learned. Chromosome, made from DNA. Gene, the basic unit of hereditary. Mitosis, the cell divides into two identical daughter cells. Remember, replicate, equator, pull and divide. Uses, growth and repair, occurs in somatic cells, no variation. So let's remember all these key things that we've had a look at so far. So what do we know? We all have in our cells a nucleus. The nucleus contains thread-like structures which we call chromosomes. Remember, human beings have 46 chromosomes. So in here we have 46 chromosomes, or we say 23 pairs. Now, different organisms have different numbers of these chromosomes. Remember, the chromosomes are made out of DNA, and individual bits of DNA represent genes. Now let's jump back to the slide for a moment. Mitosis, the cell divides into two identical daughter cells. Okay, so we have two identical daughter cells. Now if we go back here, look at what we started with. Here we have two chromosomes. We'll just write a short form here. Two chromosomes. Okay, this looks like an N rather than an M. And down here, our product, two chromosomes, and this one also two chromosomes, identical. That means there is no variation, no difference between the cells. They are exactly the same because we need them for the same function when we are growing or repairing. Let's go back to the slide. Finally, remember, replicate, equator, pull and divide. Growth and repair is the main function, occurs in somatic cells, no variation. These are the key things that you need to remember for mitosis. Let's try one or two questions to check our knowledge. Question 1. From where do new cells arise? So, how do we make new cells in our body? Think about it. We have to do a process. Let's check the answer. From cell division by mitosis. Question. The original cell that divides is called the what cell, while the two new identical cells are called what cells? You should have been listening to me here. So what do we actually call the original cell and the two new cells down here? There's a particular name for them. Have you written them down? Let's check the answer. The parent cell, the daughter cell. So our original cell up here is called the parent cell. The two cells that we make down here are called the daughter cells. So we start with a parent and we create two daughters. Sketch the stages of mitosis. Chromosomes 4. So what I would like you to do at home is to redo the whole process. Look, you've got a guide here. All you need to do is follow this guide. What I'm asking you to do is change the number of chromosomes. Look, the key here is this. If you start with 4 chromosomes up here at your parent cell, your two daughter cells down here must also have 4 chromosomes each. So you start with this diagram, replicate, so 4 becomes 8. Arrange all 8 of them, all 4 sets, I should say, across the equator. Pull all 4 sets apart, and then you'll get 2 cells with 4 each. You should be able to do this. And write the keys down to each step. Replicate, equator, pull apart, divide. You need to have the whole process so that has been done by you diagrammatically. Very important. Question. What is chromosome made of? What is a gene? So this is just going back. What is the chromosome made of? And what is the definition of a gene? You should know both of these. Let's check the answer. Chromosome made of DNA. The gene is the basic unit of hereditary. So this is basically what you need to know. Chromosome is made of DNA, and the gene is the basic unit of hereditary. Meiosis. Meiosis is the process of cutting in half the number of chromosomes to prepare for gametes for reproduction. So now we want to make our gametes. And the key process here is called meiosis. Now meiosis is a bit different to mitosis. In mitosis, the chromosomes stayed the same. If I started with 2, I finished with 2. But in meiosis, the idea is a bit different. What we want to do is make the number of chromosomes half. If I start with 2, my daughter cells must have 1. So with us human beings, if you start with 46, it means our final product must have 23. Because when we put 23 in a sperm and 23 in an ovum back together, we get 46 again. This way we can make sure the chromosome number in the offspring is always correct. So in meiosis, we want to halve the number of chromosomes. One cell that ends dividing into 4 cells. Eggs and sperm in animals, ova and pollen in plants. Meiosis only occurs in sex organs. Has variation. Crossing over occurs. Now these are the key characteristics that you need to remember for meiosis. One cell becomes 4. You need to know the names of our key gametes. So egg or ova and sperm for animals, and for our plants, the ova and pollen. Remember, it must occur in sex cells. Mitosis occurred in somatic cells. Meiosis only in sex cells. And there is variation. That means this process called crossing over will occur where genetic information transfers from one chromosome to another chromosome. So it means the chromosomes become different, which is why you, me, your brother, your sister, your father, your mother, your grandfather, granduncle, grandauntie all look different. We have variation that is the result of chromosomes crossing over. There is variation. Crossing over occurs. There are 2 cell divisions. So in this one, slightly different to mitosis. Mitosis, we divided once. Here we need to divide twice to produce the 4 cells. So remember the key things. Meiosis, cutting chromosome number in half. One cell that ends up dividing into 4 cells. Process is to make gametes. Only occurs in sex cells. Has variation. Crossing over occurs. So the key here is to see the process happening. So let's jump up to the board here and have a look at how meiosis occurs. Keep our eyes open for the half of the number and watch out for the 2 cell divisions. So let's begin with meiosis over here. So we start with 1 cell. Let's say we start with the nucleus straight away. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 chromosomes. Step 1 is we have to replicate. Okay? We have to replicate and make sure. Okay? I think 4 is a bit too much to follow, so let's keep it simple. Let's use 2 here, shall we? Okay. So first we have to replicate. So replicate. So we get this. Then remember step 2, equator. So what happens is at the equator, these chromosomes sit, but something occurs when they sit here. Watch. As they sit, they cross over each other. When they cross over, a piece of information is transferred. So now we want to pull them apart. So the next step is pull apart. So watch what happens. When I pull this one apart, the little end is a different color. See this here? It's different. And then the other one starts with green and then becomes white. So notice here and over here, the chromosomes have changed because of crossing over. Over on this side, the same thing occurs. Okay, now what we end up with is one cell over here with slightly different chromosomes. This one's got a little green at the end, and this one's got a little green at the top. And then we have another cell over here. This one is all green with a bit of white at the bottom. And this one's got a bit of white at the top and then green. So this is the first division. We've divided one time. So remember, replicate, equator, pull apart. Okay? Now we got to do the second division. The second division is really simple. We don't replicate. So this is key. Here, no replicate. We go straight to the equator and pull apart. So we'll just look at one here. So you just take this at the equator. This one has got a bit of green at the bottom here. Remember, this one a bit of green at the top. One goes here and one goes here. So you make one new cell here and you make one new cell here, like this. So this one has got this, this one has got this. This one is the one with the green at the bottom. This is the one with the green at the top here. And the same thing happens here. This does the same thing to produce a new cell and a new cell. This will be the green and green with a bit of white at the bottom and a bit of white at the top. This is meiosis. Let's go over what we did. In the first step, we replicate, equator, pull apart. That's the first division. In the second division, we don't replicate. So what we're doing is we're taking the 46 chromosomes and just dividing them into 23. So no replicate, just the equator, pull apart, two new cells. We start with one, we cascade down, and we finish with 1, 2, 3, 4. The original had 2 chromosomes. The final products have 1. We have halved it. The chromosome number is half. Let's try a question. What is the function of meiosis? Where does it occur? So what are we trying to do with meiosis? What do we want to make? And where does it occur in the body? Have you written down the answers? Let's check. Answer. To make gametes occurs in sex cells. If a cell has 24 chromosomes, how many chromosomes will it have after meiosis? Remember, the idea of meiosis is to halve the cell in chromosome number. So if you start with 24, what will you have at the end? Let's check the answer. 12 chromosomes. What is the process that produces variation? What's that process where the chromosomes went over each other and changed information? Can you remember what it was called? Let's check the answer. Crossing over. So finally, make sure you can compare mitosis and meiosis. The differences are very important. Mitosis, somatic cell; meiosis, sex cell. Mitosis, 1 division; meiosis, 2 division. Mitosis, 2 cells with 2 N chromosome number; meiosis ends up with 4 cells of N, so you become half. Mitosis, no variation, cells are identical. Meiosis has variation. Mitosis, no crossing over. Meiosis has crossing over. Make sure you know how to explain mitosis and how to explain meiosis. Be able to compare the two processes. Know where they happen: somatic cell, sex cell. For growth and repair, to make gametes. Make sure you know the differences between these two. It's really, really important. That's all the time we have for this lesson. Thank you for watching iTTV.